So the main and co-main of UFC 306 at the Sphere has just been leaked apparently, with Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway as the main event for the featherweight title. And for those of you who care, there was no mention of the BMF title being on the line. I personally don't care. I love this fight regardless, and I don't really care about the BMF title in general. This fight is still insane regardless. One of the best fights you can put on, probably my most anticipated fight of the year. The only one that could maybe top this is Jones versus Aspinall, but it's not looking like we're going to get that fight. But we got Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway in the main event of 306, and then for the co-main, we have Sean O'Malley versus Merab for the bantamweight title. Now, I'm not going to talk about that fight today. I'm going to make a separate video on it in the near future, so subscribe so you don't miss that. But very interesting matchmaking from the UFC. We all know Sean and Ilia have had their history with each other, and Sean has talked about basically ever since he became the champion, going up to featherweight and trying to become a double champ. So they might be trying to set that up here. Sean beats Merab, Ilia beats Max, or loses to Max. I think Sean is probably going to fight for the featherweight belt next regardless, even if he doesn't deserve it yet. Just something to think about, but I'm going to talk more about this Sean O'Malley versus Merab fight in the future, go more in depth. But let's talk about this Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway fight, because as I said, this is one of the best fights you can put on in all of MMA. It is kind of weird they have two non-Mexican fighters headlining a Mexican card. I mean, it's called Noche UFC for Mexican Independence Day, and neither of the fighters in the main or the co-main are Mexican. I mean, Ilia's from Spain. I guess that's kind of similar. That was a joke, by the way. That's gonna make people so mad. That was a joke. But right now, there is only one Mexican champion, and that's Alexa Grasso, and she's gonna face Valentina Shevchenko next. Maybe that will be on this card as well. That would be insane. Throw that on there as a third title fight. Have Yair Rodriguez versus Diego Lopez. That would be amazing. You got to have Brandon Moreno on there. There's so many ways you can matchmake this card. I'm very excited for this card. And for that main event, Ilia actually accepted a fight. I made a video a few months back about Ilia basically just refusing to fight all the top guys in the division. But if it wasn't Volk, because Volk definitely does deserve the immediate rematch. He was a dominant champion, had 4 or 5 title defenses, basically cleared out the division. But if it wasn't him, Max was definitely the next guy in line. It seems like Volk might be fighting out lightweight next. I've been seeing a lot of rumors of him versus Charles Oliveira. Either way, I think Volk should take some more time off, coming off 2 back-to-back knockout losses against Islam and Ilia, both brutal knockouts at his age. He definitely needs to give his body a lot of time to recover, and I don't think he should come back till late this year at the earliest, if not early next year. I've been seeing a lot of people say that stylistically Max Holloway is a tougher fight for Ilia than Volk is, and honestly I'd probably agree with them. Max has pretty good takedown defense to keep the fight standing, which immediately eliminates one of Ilia's biggest attributes, which is his grappling. He has an amazing chin. He has never been knocked out once in 30 plus fights. He's only been dropped once against Justin Gaethje, although for some reason they didn't count it. Must have had Stevie Wonder tracking the stats that night. But it took Justin Gaethje, one of the hardest hitting guys, one of the most dangerous punchers up a division, to drop Max. So it's going to be hard for Ilia to knock Max out, and Max is just a very well-rounded striker on the feet, a great boxer, one of the only guys who can match Ilia in the boxing, has very good kicks all around. But Ilia is a very dangerous matchup for Max as well. He is extremely well-rounded, one of the most well-rounded guys Max has ever faced. I would say Volk is slightly more well-rounded than Ilia, but only slightly. I mean, Ilia is so good everywhere. He has amazing submissions and overall good grappling on the ground. He has good wrestling to get the fight down there, coming from a Greco-Roman background. He has good takedowns, good singles, good double legs. He's shown an ability to get you down in the clinch as well. I would say he definitely has the grappling and probably the wrestling advantage over Max. Will he be able to get the fight down? I'll talk about that in a minute. And then there's not much I can say about his striking that hasn't already been said. I know a lot of people talk about Max Holloway being the best boxer in the UFC. I think it's Ilia. I think Ilia is the best boxer in the UFC. His combinations are amazing. The best combinations I've ever seen in MMA in terms of boxing combinations. The way he'll dig into the body with a left hook, come upstairs with a right hand, is just 4, 5, 6 punch combinations are elite. The Jai Herbert knockout is a great example. That's one of the best combinations I've ever seen in MMA. The way he just folded Herbert and he folded Volkanovski in a similar way. The power he has combined with how good his combinations, it's I can't even, I'm stuttering. I can't even put into words. It's so scary how he can combine the two so effectively. He has the ability to knock pretty much anyone out with one punch. Now, that pretty much is Max Holloway. Can he knock Max out? I wouldn't bet on it. I need to see it to believe it. I'm not going to pick someone to knock Max out until I've actually seen Max get knocked out. But Ilia might have the best chance out of anyone besides maybe Gaethje. But technically, Ilia is just a lot better of a boxer than Gaethje. Gaethje's a good boxer. Ilia is an elite boxer. He has insane combinations, a really good jab he can work behind. We saw him tear Josh Emmett apart with that jab. His boxing defense is very good. He'll shoulder roll. One of the only guys I've seen use the shoulder roll effectively in MMA at a very high level. He has good head movement. He keeps his hands up, his chin low. His biggest weakness defensively is the kicks. Now I'm going to get into that in more detail here in a second because that is going to be Max's best weapon in this fight, especially since Ilia doesn't use too many kicks of his own. He'll mix in some leg kicks. He tore Josh Emmett's leg apart, but it's rare he'll throw a body or a head kick. But being as well-rounded as Ilia is a huge advantage for him against Max. He needs to mix it up. Mix in his boxing with his wrestling. Try and get the fight down. The wrestling is going to open up Max more to the strikes. The boxing is going to open up the wrestling more. But can Ilia get this fight down? Because that's a big question going into it. Max has shown to have pretty good takedown defense. Now, I wouldn't say it's amazing, and he's never really fought an amazing offensive wrestler. Volk is probably the best wrestler he's faced, and in their second fight, Volk got him down, not easily, but once he did get him down, he was able to control Max on the ground, and that's the biggest worry because I would say Ilia has better jiu-jitsu than Volk. Positionally, I would say it's close, but Ilia has better submissions on the ground, and I do think Ilia definitely has the grappling advantage on the ground. Not that Max is bad there. Max has solid jiu-jitsu. I just think Ilia is better. He has really good submissions, and the amount of submissions he goes to, he's very diverse with the submissions he uses. He has very good chokes, very good arm triangles, anacondas, guillotines, and he will attack any submission opening you give him, and he's just overall very good on the ground, good positionally. He'll transition, he'll take your back if you give it up, but it's going to be hard to get Max down. As I said before, Max has solid takedown defense, and although Ilia is a good wrestler, he hasn't really fought someone with good wrestling besides Volk. Obviously, Volk is a very good wrestler, easily the best wrestler he's ever faced, but he didn't attempt any takedowns in that fight. The best wrestler he's taken down is probably Josh Emmett, and he got Emmett down very easily, and Emmett's not a terrible wrestler, but he doesn't have better takedown defense than Max. So I could see a world where Max is able to stuff all the takedowns, but I could also see a world where Ilia gets him down, and if he does, I think that's where Ilia has his biggest advantage over Max, because on the feet, these guys are almost dead even. I would say Ilia is a better boxer for all the reasons I said before. He has amazing combinations. He's very fast, very powerful. He'll mix it up. He'll work to the body with these left hooks, get his opponents to drop their hands, and then come upstairs with a big right hook. He's also so accurate. He places his shot so perfectly. So not only does he have amazing combinations, not only is he fast, powerful, but he's also accurate. And Max isn't the best defensively. Now, his defense has gotten a lot better as he's taken a more patient approach in his last few fights. Before that, he just kind of relied on his chin as his defense. His chin was his defense. And although his defense is better now, it's still not great, which is worrying going up against Ilia, who is as elite of a striker as he is. But as I've said, Max has the best chin in UFC history, in my opinion. And Max is a very good boxer himself, has a good jab, a good cross, good overhands. He's been showing a lot more power now. He's been putting a lot more behind his shots. I mean, he was able to knock out Justin Gaethje. Yes, that was because Gaethje was tired and a lot of the cumulative damage, but Gaethje still has a really good chin. And Max was never really known for having power, but now he's putting a lot more behind his shots. And although Ilia's defense is good, Ilia's definitely hittable. We see him get tagged every now and then against worse strikers who aren't as good of a boxer as Max, who aren't as fast as Max is. Max is one of the only guys who can match Ilia for speed. But as good of a boxer as Max is, I still think Ilia has the advantage there. But the one place Max has a pretty big advantage over Ilia is with his kicks. Max has very good kicks, very good head kicks. We saw him drop Volk with a head kick. We saw him use those spinning back kicks against Justin Gaethje very well. He has good leg kicks as well, and Ilia is so susceptible to kicks, especially the leg kicks because of his stance. He uses a boxing stance. He'll stand with a lot of weight on his lead leg. He doesn't defend leg kicks hardly at all. We saw Volk use leg kicks very well against him. We saw Josh Emmett use leg kicks very well against him. And Max, although his leg kicks aren't as good as Volk's are, still has very good leg kicks, and his kicks just in general are going to be very effective against Ilia, not only offensively, but also defensively. He can use those kicks, maintain range, keep Ilia out of boxing range. Volk actually did this very well in the first round of their fight. He was basically only throwing kicks, only throwing leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks, using them to keep Ilia out of boxing range. And then in the second round, he moved away from that and began to box more with Ilia, wasn't throwing nearly as many kicks, and that allowed Ilia to get in close and find the knockout. But Max can use the kicks to maintain range. Max has longer legs than Volk, is a lot taller than Ilia, and we've seen Ilia struggle against taller opponents like Jai Herbert. Now, Jai Herbert does have like a 76-inch reach. He's 6'1" with a 76-inch reach, I believe, whereas Max is 5'11" with a 69-inch reach. Ha, funny number. A lot taller than Ilia. He has a 4-inch height advantage, which I do think is going to give Ilia some problems, but the issue is Max has such a tiny reach for his height, only 69 inches, which is the exact same as Ilia. Although Max is 4 inches taller, they have the exact same reach. And I would say, although Ilia was definitely struggling with the height of Jai Herbert, he definitely was struggling more with the reach, but that's not going to be as big of a deal. I mean, Max doesn't even have as big of a reach as Volk does, but having the height advantage, having longer legs is going to allow Max to keep Ilia further back at range. Also 5'7", 5'11", good height for those Max Holloway head kicks. And we saw Ilia get rocked with a head kick against Jai Herbert, the closest Ilia's ever been to losing. I mean, that nearly had him finished. And as I said, Max has shown to have really good head kicks. And I just think the kicks is where Max is going to have his biggest advantage, because that's where Ilia is his weakest defensively. But for my early prediction, this is such an interesting stylistic matchup. I think that's why I'm so intrigued by this fight, why I think this is one of the best fights you can put on in all of MMA. Ilia has elite jiu-jitsu, but Max has very good takedown defense to keep the fight standing. Ilia has insane one-punch knockout power, but Max has an iron chin. Ilia is fast, but Max has the volume and probably the cardio advantage. That's another thing. Max has elite cardio, can go 5 rounds easily, whereas Ilia has only gone 5 rounds once, and that was against Josh Emmett, and he looked very good to the point where I'll say he has solid cardio, but Emmett did not push the pace the same way Max will. So I do think Max has the cardio advantage, and maybe in the later rounds, the 4th, 5th rounds, he'll begin to drown Ilia, and that's where he could take over. This is such a hard fight to predict. Luckily, this is an early prediction and not an official prediction, and I'm definitely going to do a lot of tape studying. I'll probably make like a full complete 20 minute breakdown video on this fight later, where I'll go even more in depth. But for an early prediction, I was going to go with Ilia going into this, only slightly. I mean, this fight's pretty much impossible to predict. These guys are almost even, but I think I'm going to go with Max as an early prediction. I convinced myself at the end. The main reason why I'm leaning with Max is because of the cardio. I think Ilia will have a slight advantage in the early rounds, the 1st, 2nd round. 3rd round could be dicey, but I think once the 4th and 5th rounds come about, I think that's where Max is going to separate himself, and that's honestly why I'm predicting Max wins this fight by a decision, but I would not be shocked either way. But yeah, I'm going to do a lot of film study on both of these guys, watch a lot of their fights, and I'm going to make a more in-depth breakdown video, and then right before the fight happens, I'm going to make a prediction video. So subscribe so you don't miss that. Like the video if you did enjoy. Leave your early predictions for this fight in the comments down below and tell me why you think that person will win, and I'll see you guys in the next one.